In New York, the constitutionality of stop and frisk is being questioned in the courts, and some interesting testimony is coming up when it comes to the quota system in the NYPD. Now, of course, police don't want to admit that they have a quota system. They refer to it as performance goals, right? But there's a little bit of...
That's awesome, performance goals.
Right.
Well, I didn't have a quota for number of arrests. I just had a goal for performance based on arrests. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Now, an interesting thing is happening. There are two police officers who are whistleblowers in this case, and as they're testifying, there are police commanders and city lawyers that are fighting back against the whistleblowers, and they're doing so by accusing them of being lazy, right? They're saying, look, we have to have these performance goals because if we don't, these police officers are lazy. They don't want to get out of their squad cars. They just want to sit there. So we have to make sure that they're doing their job. So as a result, these police officers are being told, you need to meet a quota, so why don't you go up and harass random people on the streets that you might suspect might be doing something, even though they're not doing anything wrong at all.
So it encourages a couple of things. One, it encourages fishing expeditions.
Yeah.
Go frisk that guy in case he's got anything so that you could maybe meet your quota. It also encourages you to plant stuff on people. If you've got to get a certain number of arrests by a certain period of time and you can't find enough, and that you understand something else that's really important. Finding actual guilty people takes a lot of work, right? And so you have to do detective work, you have to figure out you might actually have to police the neighborhood, right? On the other hand, stop and frisk is easy. Planting evidence is easy, right? And you gotta meet the quota either way. And this is not theoretical. The reason we're having this case is because that's what they've been caught doing time and time again.
Absolutely. In fact, the lawyers who have brought this stop and frisk case to the court say the following. According to the civil rights lawyers who brought the stop and frisk case to the action lawsuit, the number of street stops have soared over the last decade because police officers under pressure to make the quota have started to stop people whom they have no reason to suspect of wrongdoing.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And then shockingly enough, it turns out, as we've shown you over and over on this show, the people that they stop happen to be disproportionately Black and Latino.
Right.
What a wild coincidence. Huh, interesting. And then one other thing is, as Adam pointed out, in the case, the top police officials are throwing the other cops under the bus. They're testifying in court saying our cops are lazy bums. Like if we don't let them, if we don't force them, they're going to be sitting and eating donuts inside the car the whole time. Well, why don't you take action on that? Why don't you stop being lazy and figure out a way to motivate your cops properly instead of doing the lazy thing, which is just to do a quota. I don't know how to manage cops. Screw it, I'll put a quota on, and whether people are guilty or not, they'll bring me a number of arrests. That's lazy.
Right, and also another thing that's extremely lazy is planting evidence on people. We did a story about that where police officers in New York, specifically in Brooklyn, were planting drugs on people at bars, and then they would be like, oh, where did these drugs come from? We gotta arrest you. So the stuff that's happening in New York is ridiculous. I'm glad that stop and frisk is being challenged right now, especially because of the fact that it just disproportionately impacts Blacks and Latinos. I mean, we gotta clean this up. This is crazy.
One last random thing here. Man, I really was naive when I was younger. This is something that Steve-O gets all over me for, and he's right about it, right? And I remember having this debate when we were in college with him, and he's a no good, dirty lib, and I was a little bit more conservative at the time. And a couple of his friends had gotten stuff planted on them by cops somewhere by the Canadian border. I forget if it was in Toronto or on this side of the border. Anyway, and I was like, man, Steve, you're being ridiculous. Why would cops plant things? They wouldn't. No, cops are here to protect us. Why would they ever plant evidence? It makes no sense. Oh, man.